Hello everyone and welcome to my birth story video. I basically decided that I'm going to do a little mini series of YouTube videos just coming from Instagram questions which I've got in front of me here. So there's quite a few and it's just going to take too long to go through them all in one video, so I thought I'd just break them down into subjects. So today I'm just going to finish the last few questions around the pregnancy that have come up that I didn't talk about in the last video, and then I'm also going to talk today about the birth story. Okay, change of scenery because Emily was making her self-settling noises as she does, little coos and cries and all sorts of cute noises, but didn't want that in the background. So anyway, let's get into the questions. How many weeks were you when you told parents and family? So I told all of our family together, well, our mums and my sister, at 5 weeks because we had just found out that week, and coincidentally we had a family catch-up organised already for that weekend. Next question, how are you doing? There's a few of these. Not a question. Hope you're doing well, hope you're settling in, hope all is going well for you. Lots of those sorts of questions. And that's probably a good one to start off with, to say thank you and to say that I'm doing really well. I would not be saying that if it was week 4, 5, 6 or 7. They were the toughest weeks, and that was before we got a sleep consultant in. So I'm going to talk about sleep in another video, but I'm doing really well now. We've always had really good night's sleep, but the day sleep was just non-existent, and that was really stressful when Emily would sleep for no more than like 15-20 minutes, an hour on a good day. So now that we're past that and I've got my life back, like I can do things, I can shower, I can wash my hair, I can clean the house for more than 15 minutes at a time, even go out, take Emily out, have more structured play with her. It's just so much better and I feel amazing. I feel like a different woman, but I would be lying if I said that weeks like 4 to 7 weren't really, really hard. As of about week 3 is when things got really difficult. So yeah, we have definitely had some tough times in there, but feeling really good, really enjoying this chapter at the moment. It's such a fun age. She is just the cutest little baby, of course I would say that, but just her personality's been showing through for the last few weeks, and those smiles that you get are just like, can't describe it, just amazing. So thank you to everybody who asked, and I am doing amazing. Next question, I remember you saying you weren't sure you wanted kids. How do you feel now you've made the decision, asking as someone who isn't sure? Okay, how do I feel now? I feel like I'm so glad that I did this. It is just incredible. You can't describe it. There's absolutely no words without getting emotional. Trying not to get emotional when you talk about that stuff is so hard. I don't know if there's like pregnancy hormones still hanging around in there, but yeah, I am so glad that I have had a baby. I'm so happy with the timing of it all. I could not imagine life without her. I'm not saying that I wish I did it earlier, but it's just so incredible that, like, yeah, I mean, I could have done it earlier, because I've been missing out. I've been missing out on how amazing this is. In saying that, you know my reasons for waiting. I talked about that in the last YouTube video, and the timing does feel right for us. But yeah, I just could not imagine not having a baby. I certainly only want one. That hasn't changed, but she's amazing. Life is amazing. It is so hard sometimes, and still, we have tough days here and there. Even though the sleep is really good, there's other challenges as well, and the sleep isn't amazing all the time. So it's such a wild ride. I don't think that you could be prepared as much as I prepared myself for it. You just can't. You just have to live it. But it's incredible. I've never been happier. And I think that if you're not sure, then you have to do it. If there's any chance that you might want to have kids or a child, then you have to go for it. It's amazing. Next question. Just need to log something in Emily's tracker because because she woke between her sleep cycle and she's just gone back to sleep. Good girl. I think I'm going to get into the birth story now, because that's going to take up a bit of time. So I talked about this in the last video, but I had elected to have a cesarean. And when I say it was elective, the other option for me, because of my health issues, didn't really feel like a good option. I would have had to have had an induction, a scheduled induction, because I was on blood thinners. And that's a whole other story, so go back to the last video if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about that. So because I couldn't have a spontaneous labour, I decided that I would have a cesarean, and I had a great experience. I'm not just saying it, obviously I can't compare this to you know, a vaginal birth, but for me the whole experience was really good. I will talk to you about what happens, the healing, and how things are going now. But overall, I would say that I had a really great experience. So if you're in a position where you have to have a cesarean, or like me for health reasons, your decision is almost taken out of your hands, or you just think you want to have a cesarean because you do have the choice, then, you know, I would say go for it. Don't worry about it. I don't think that anyone has obviously pain-free experiences or no healing to go through afterwards, but don't be afraid. And I think there's so much negativity around cesareans out there, and there really shouldn't be. So hopefully me sharing my experience and putting some positivity around the subject will help some people. I've shared a little bit of this on my personal Instagram account and already had quite a few people reach out to say thank you for talking about cesarean being a positive experience, and I think that's another thing that really prompted me to talk more about this today on this platform. So in terms of the cesarean, so I was booked in at 39 weeks on the dot to the day in the afternoon. It was a 2:15 appointment. I had the baby at the Mater Private Women's Hospital in South Brisbane, and they were absolutely incredible. Could not fault them. The whole team was just amazing. I had an obstetrician and a midwife team, and they were incredible. I went with Di Pode in Spring Hill and her midwifery team that supported me in the lead up and post the birth. The whole process was insane. Like, oh my god, just the whole thing. Like, the day before I started to get really, really, really anxious. This always happens to me. And then the day of a procedure, I'm almost fine, but the day before I just get so anxious, and that's exactly what happened. On the day of, because it was at the afternoon, so you can't eat for, God, I can't even remember now. You can't eat for hours. I think it was like 8 a.m. I had to stop eating for the 2 p.m. And you can't drink anything but clear liquids as well in the lead up for a certain amount of time. It's not as long. I can't actually remember already how long that's for. But yeah, we just sort of got up, everything was packed. I packed my hospital bags super last minute, but it was really just about getting those last minute things ready and getting the house ready, you know, just all those finishing touches, and trying to relax because we were going to bring home a baby the next time we were here. Well, the next time I was here. Dan did pop home occasionally, even though he got to stay at the Mater. So we met my midwife there at the hospital, and she took us up to our room, so the room that we were going to be in for most of our stay, and then we got changed. So I got changed into my, I think they call them scrubs, I don't know. Actually no, I didn't wear scrubs. Dan got into scrubs like a nurse, and I was in my like hospital gown. And then we pretty much, like, it just went so fast. Like, we went down to a waiting area that's near the birthing room, birthing suite I think they call it, and I was getting really anxious at this point. Just I kept thinking about the spinal. That was probably the thing that was most nerve-wracking for me, and I was really anxious about feeling sick and having sickness throughout the procedure because I didn't want to be feeling yucky. I wanted to really enjoy the moments, and so I think I was just getting really anxious about how I was going to feel and how it was all going to go. And it did take a little bit longer than expected, so we didn't get in until after, I don't even remember now, but we waited probably half an hour longer than we were supposed to, and then all of a sudden it was sort of on. The anaesthetist came in to have a chat. He was really lovely, asked a few questions. There was different nurses coming in and asking a lot of the same repeat questions, going over the forms and things like that, which we'd been warned about was pretty standard procedure. And then all of a sudden my obstetrician popped in, and that was when we knew, okay, it's time. So she was like, how are you? We were just really excited at that point, knowing that we were about to go in. Anyway, yeah, we go in and there's so many people in there, and it's crazy, like they're all there for your birth. We had our music, we're just connecting to Bluetooth. So we had my Frank Sinatra playlist on, of course, because I love Frank Sinatra. So of course we wanted to listen to Frank Sinatra for the procedure. Then I was sat up on I was sitting, I think, initially. Maybe I was laying down at first, I don't know, but the clear memory that I have and what I've got photos of, which is crazy, just to remember that moment, is sitting up on the bed. You know, Dan's right next to me. He's sort of at where my head would be when I'm laying down. And I'm sitting there and they put like a pillow on your lap and they put your legs up onto a step and they talk to you about the spinal, and like it was just so nerve-wracking. Got all these things hooked up to you, checking your blood pressure, and then yeah, they basically just get you to like hunch over and curl your spine as much as you can, and they give you like a local anesthetic first, and then they go in with the spinal. And it like honestly, it was totally fine. It was pretty pain-free. I had no issues. It went in really easy, and pretty quickly you start to feel things going numb, I guess, or not feel things. So they lay you down, and like the wildest thing ever is when they lift up your legs, like when they're getting you into your position, and you can see your knee. Like I could see my leg being lifted, but I couldn't feel it. It was crazy. Like they test you with like, can you feel this ice, and where can you feel the ice to, and they kind of put the ice up your back, and then you let them know when you can feel it. So anyway, the only symptoms or side effects, I should say, that I had were I got really shaky, but I was shaky beforehand just from all the adrenaline. But yeah, the shakiness was just like out of control, like really, really shaky. Even Dan had the shakes because it's freezing cold in there. And yeah, I guess the adrenaline's just racing. So yeah, that was the main side effect. I didn't get any sickness at all, which was great. So that was it, really. And then, of course, they do their thing. They make their incisions. I think they cut through like 7 layers, which is just wild, but you don't feel any of that. And it all happens so quickly. So I think the whole procedure takes about 5 minutes. It's really, really quick. And they warn you that there's going to be some pushing and pulling, and that you're going to feel like movement, but not actually feel any pain, if that makes sense. So I'd heard that was a bit weird and freaks people out a bit, but I was totally fine. Like I feel like it happened so quick. They just kind of like, okay, we're going to push, and they just sort of pushed on my stomach in a couple of places, and then bam, like out she came. And yeah, I think you're just in the moment. It's just so incredible, and you're so excited, and because like you can't feel any pain, it's totally fine. And then they lift your baby up. There she was. She was crying, which of course is what you want to hear. So, and they put her on my chest, and it was just the most incredible thing. I wanted to do the breast crawl. So if you haven't looked into that before, then definitely look into it. It's really a great way to initiate breastfeeding, and particularly if you've had a cesarean section, definitely recommend that you research the breast crawl if you haven't heard of it. Okay, so then after that, I think we had the maximum time possible. I didn't want to be rushed. I said that I wanted a good like half an hour to an hour for breastfeeding, and they basically gave me as long as they could. They did have to take Emily away for about 10 minutes with Dan, so Dan did skin to skin just while they sort of checked her and did some initial observations, but that was super quick, and we were only separated for, I reckon, 5, maximum 10 minutes, and then we were in the recovery area, so out of the birthing suite and into basically like the emergency area of a hospital. It was kind of like one of those areas where there's just curtains in between, not that I could hear other people, but yeah, we were in there in recovery. I had really high blood pressure after the birth, which we later found was I had post-eclampsia, not pre-eclampsia, but post, so it's a little bit rare, and the blood pressure was high, but I didn't feel anything. And yeah, that was it. After however long, we were then like taken up to the room where we were then to stay for the next few days. So off we went with our new little baby, which was just the most surreal experience. I felt great, like apart from the shakes, which did take some time to settle down, I felt really good. And before long I was eating, and you know, I was super thirsty for the next few days. But felt really good. I felt really good that night. It was all really good. The first day was really fine, like can't complain, just the most incredible experience and a wonderful team. So the next day was the hardest day. It wasn't like horrendous, but there was a couple of things that were just a little bit unsettling and not nice. And that was having like the catheter removed, having the first shower, and standing up, which all happens like in one go basically. So the next morning the nurse came in and she was like, are you ready to stand up and have a shower? And I was like, okay, but I think so much adrenaline had built up, like I had been waiting for that moment thinking it was going to be awful, and I just worked myself up and I started getting really shaky again. So we kind of pressed pause on that, and then she was like, when you're ready, just buzz me and we'll try again. And I think within like 10 minutes I was like, okay, I'm ready, let's just do this. So the nurse came in and kind of told me the best way to like prepare myself to stand up and have a sit. And then up I went. I just went for it. She said that I did an amazing job. She's like, you're doing so well. Like I just stood up and walked to the bathroom with kind of no issues. It was so much easier than I thought. I don't know why I worked myself up so much. And then I had a shower, and then when I was ready, I called her in and she removed the catheter, which you don't even really feel it. It just comes out. It's all good. Again, something that I'd worked myself up thinking it was going to be so awful, but it's totally fine. It's just, you know, those things are slightly uncomfortable, and I think the worst part about it is that you are expecting it to be awful, you're expecting it to be painful, and it's all in your head, so you're your own worst enemy with those. And look, there was just like, it's not even really that painful because you're on painkillers, but just some weird sensations, like when you're trying to sit up in bed or when you're trying to get out of the bed or things like that. But I was up and about that day, like moving around, walking around, especially like the days that followed. Like they actually couldn't believe how much I was walking around. I did have a really good experience. I think that I felt so good because I'd felt so shitty throughout my pregnancy, and as you know, if you've watched the video before this, I had an issue with my heart, so I couldn't walk very far or fast, and I struggled going upstairs. I was always feeling really faint, and like instantly my heart was back to normal. I could tell. I just felt so good, and there was absolutely no nausea, so I was enjoying food again. And I didn't even realize how sick I still was until the day after, when I felt so good. So yeah, I think I just felt great. I was just literally on cloud nine. Like, it was just the most amazing experience. I can't speak any more highly of that experience. So then the next few days, like, things just get easier and easier. With the cesarean section at the Mater, you can be there for 5 days. We ended up going home after 4 days, and that's because there was a gastro outbreak on our ward, and they kind of came in and said, like, there's been a gastro outbreak on this ward, there's been X amount of people have come down with it, do you want to go home? And I was like pretty much packing my bag before she could finish that sentence. So we ended up going home a day earlier, and in the end we never got gastro, and I was just managed as an outpatient with the post-eclampsia. I had to buy a blood pressure checker. So I was checking my blood pressure every day and texting it to my obstetrician, and I was having a daily blood test as well. And because my liver markers were all returning to normal and I felt really good, the blood pressure was still really high, but I was on medication that was controlling that, and I felt amazing. Like, I would not have known that I had post-eclampsia, and I was really enjoying food again, and at that point I could have a couple of wines. So yeah, life was just amazing as we were settling into you know, that first chapter, that first newborn chapter. So yeah, it was just, the pain was so manageable just on Panadol, and I stopped the Panadol, I can't even remember, but I wasn't really on that for very long, and just every day got easier and easier in terms of like getting up and feeling comfortable. I didn't have any issues like getting out of bed and off the couch and things like that. I had no issues at all holding Amelie. They don't let you go home if you do have any issues sort of getting up or holding your baby, which I didn't know. I was kind of expecting to be immobile and unable to lift my baby for weeks, but you're literally doing that before you go. I was doing that on the second day. So yeah, recovery was great. They don't take the wound dressing off, or I didn't have it taken off until my 6-week check with the obstetrician. You can have it removed earlier, but I personally just didn't want to go there, but it all healed really well. And then the last thing that I would say on the cesarean section, just something to research, is that when they do the incision, before they do the incision to get the baby out, they give you a dose of antibiotics. I cannot remember what they're called, which is hilarious because I spent like hours and hours, days researching it. But they give you that and then they do the incision. So what happens is, because they give you those antibiotics before your baby's actually born, the baby does actually get exposed to them. And there's a slightly higher risk of an infection if you don't do the antibiotics before the incision. So if you delay the antibiotics till after the incision and after the baby's out, so it does increase the risk of infection. But for me personally, and all the research that I had done about how the baby's gut microbiota is literally established at the birth, the last thing that I wanted to do was to have my baby blasted with antibiotics right at that time. So I actually elected to have the antibiotics post-incision, which is not very common, and I'm not saying that you should do that because it does increase your risk. But all I would say is just to be educated on it, because at the end of the day, I didn't get an infection. I could have, but you know, I felt that I wanted to wear that risk, that I'd rather have an infection than my daughter be exposed to like directly to have those antibiotics in her system. I also elected not to have the Hep B vaccine for Amelie at the birth. I didn't see the need to rush into that when she was freshly born, personally. So we did have the Hep B injection, the first one, at her 6-week needles, but I just didn't want to do them immediately. But we did do the vitamin K shot because obviously I have loads of issues with my blood and clotting in particular. So we felt like for us, it was sort of logical and we should go ahead with that needle. So we did that one. In terms of my recovery, when I went to see the physio, my ab separation was 2.5 centimeters, which was really good. So I'm able to get back into all forms of exercise, even running and jumping and things like that. And my pelvic floor, total overshare, but it is great. So she said that I'm probably like a 4 out of 5 for tightness. So my pelvic floor is great, in really great condition, so it wasn't impacted by the pregnancy or the birth. Obviously having a cesarean section kind of reduces the risks there, but you can still have damage to your pelvic floor from the weight of holding the baby. But I had been doing my pelvic floor exercises all throughout the pregnancy. I did them every single night after my shower when I was doing my self-care, like putting my face creams and serums on. And obviously before the pregnancy, like loads of Pilates and working on my pelvic floor. I think all of the Pilates that I did leading up to it and just doing those pelvic floor exercises really helped. So that would be one of my tips for you. I think I've talked enough today about the birth, so I'm going to leave all these other questions for the next few videos. I will be back soon when I've got a chance. I'm going to do the video on the breastfeeding because I've had some issues with that, and also baby sleep, which God, I could talk for hours about that. Got loads of tips for you on that and what we've done after using a sleep consultant. And then I'll probably have to do another video just to answer all the other questions about baby life, newborn, just all these questions in front of me. So yeah, stay tuned, more to come. Thanks for watching.